I became a dad when I was 16 years old, and having the responsibility of parenthood placed on your shoulders when I literally just got my license, I think that gives you a certain perspective on life, and I think just a certain level of focus that most people probably don't get until they're a little bit older.
Hey everyone, I'm Burton, and welcome to PropStream Pros, the podcast where we dive into the lives of real estate professionals who've made it. In each episode, we'll explore how they got started, challenges they faced, and the strategies that helped them succeed, so that you can learn from their journey and apply those insights to your own path. Whether you're just getting started or already building a portfolio, there's something here for everyone. So make sure to subscribe, follow, and join us as we talk to professionals who've made their own success.
On this episode of PropStream Pros, Burton sits down with Tony Robinson, an entrepreneur who built his path from the ground up. From job loss during the pandemic to growing a real estate portfolio, Tony breaks down the mindset and strategy it takes to bet on yourself and win.
Hey everyone, my name is Burton, and welcome to another episode of PropStream Pros. I have a special guest with me, so please help me give a warm welcome to Tony Robinson. Tony, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining our episode today.
Hey, Burton, thank you for having me on, brother. Excited to share my story and hopefully inspire some folks today.
That's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm here to peel back the onion. I know you're a successful investor, and I look up to you, and I saw you recently at VPCon in Las Vegas, up on stage. I have some photos of that. But I'm a firm believer, life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, if you will. So if you're okay, I'd like to kind of really dive into your story a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I guess you let me know which one of those stories do you want to hear first?
Let's start with a little bit of what you're doing today. So how long have you been partaking in real estate investing, if you will?
Yeah, we got our first long-term rental in the fall of 2019. So what year are we in right now? 2025. So we're 7 years in right now, into our actual investing journey. And we start off in long-term rentals. We transitioned within that first year to short-term rentals, and we're doing single-family short-term rentals for quite some time. And then last year we ended up launching our first commercial property, which is a hotel. We've just kind of made that progression, through very super easy single-family long-term rentals through now our first commercial property.
I love that. So we're going on to 7 years of being in real estate. Now, I couldn't help but notice you kept saying we. So when we say we, I take it this is your partner as well. Is this
so my wife of yours? My wife is my business partner, and she wasn't super involved in the long-term rentals. Buying. We live in Southern California, and for her, buying single-family homes in the middle of this town she'd never heard of in Louisiana wasn't super exciting for her. But when we transitioned to short-term, and there was the design component and the hospitality, that's when she became, I think, a bigger part of that business.
I love that. How long have you guys been married for?
Ooh, we've been dating since we were seniors in high school. So we're coming up on, it'll be 17 years that we've been dating, actually in 11 days. And then we've been married. We got married during COVID. So I don't know, was that another 5 years we've been married?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any kids by chance?
3. Yeah, man. So we've got 9-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 17-year-old.
I love that. They're like spread apart by
Just
a bit.
But
Yeah, that's awesome. So a 9, a 2, and a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Been in real estate for about 7 years now. You've been dating your wife for about 17. Again, you guys tied the knot in 2020 during COVID, I take it.
Yeah.
That's a really awesome story. So what is it about real estate that you like or don't like, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, the liking part is you get, there's a few benefits to investing in real estate. You get cash flow today, right? Whether it's long-term, short-term, whatever strategy you use, you get some sort of cash flow today for owning that asset. You get the benefit of long-term wealth building, where the value of the asset is increasing in value over time, and your loan balance is going down, so you're building equity. If you invest, depending on how you invest, there are tax benefits associated with that as well. That's part of the reason that we love short-term rentals, because the tax benefits associated with short-term rentals are probably some of the best for the average everyday investor. And when you do it the right way, it really can give you, I think, a certain level of flexibility and optionality in your life that maybe the traditional career path doesn't offer. So those are the things that I like about real estate investing. The things that I don't like are that I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily passionate about real estate itself. I mean, I kind of like the art of the deal and things like that. But, when I was a kid, I don't think I grew up and said, like, my dream is to be a real estate investor. If anything, I feel like where I'm most passionate about it, I host a podcast myself. And I think the transformation that we see in other folks being able to go through this process is probably where I find more fulfillment and enjoyment. But yeah, I mean, real estate investing is maybe a means to an end that I just happen to be decently good at.
I love those answers, and very honest and genuine. I can just tell just by the delivery. But you nailed it on the head, Tony. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to the real estate professionals that I've encountered, many of us, them didn't grow up dreaming of becoming a real estate professional or that real estate agent or lender or whatever title in the real estate umbrella. So let's go back, if you don't mind. Let's kind of time travel.
Yeah.
Let's go to grade school, if you will.
Yeah.
Right, let's say between 2nd and 5th grade. What type of kid were you? Were you the curious, the quiet? Were you the class clown?
I was the entrepreneurial kid. I was the kid who, you'd have like the competitions or like the fundraisers when you were younger. You'd have to go like sell candy door to door, and I was like always the kid who sold the most candy. I was the kid who had a business in junior high where I would go buy candy at wholesale from Costco, and then I'd bag it up into individual baggies and sell it out of my locker to get spending money. I started a car washing business with one of my neighbors during the summer. So I always had this entrepreneurial kind of, part of my personality.
Where do you think you get that from, Tony? Like, looking back at it, do you think you were born with it, or was it someone in the household? Was it someone you saw on TV? Where do you think that sparked of, hey, I just want to be doing it?
Yeah, it was a combination, right? I mean, my dad was definitely a strong voice growing up about the benefits of working for yourself and building passive income. My dad off and on throughout his life went kind of back and forth between working for himself and working for someone else. He would work for himself, and then for one reason or another, that business wouldn't work out, and he'd go back to work for someone else, and then he'd step out and try it again. And I give him credit for continuing to always try. And he'd actually built a pretty successful business in real estate, where he was helping investors in California buy real estate in the East Coast, primarily in Detroit. And it was almost like a turnkey service, and it was doing really well. Then the market crashed in 2008, and his business went with it. And just throughout that journey, he just always talked about the importance of building something for yourself. When I was, probably 2 years old, my dad had worked at the same company for, over a decade. Started off as low-level employee, worked his way up to being like the general manager of this facility. And he goes into work one day, and the owners are like, "Hey, we're going bankrupt. We're shutting down the business today, and you and everyone else doesn't have a job anymore." And he was like in his mid-30s. They had 2 homes at that point. Me, my sister had a family, and I think that just taught him something early on about the importance of building something for yourself. So he was definitely I think a voice to kind of encourage that entrepreneurship in me.
If you don't mind me asking, and I hate to rekindle any feelings at the time that you might have had, as a father, and again, I'm father of a 12-year-old and you're a father of 3.
Yeah.
We try to mask our kids from the struggles that we're facing at the time, right?
Yeah.
It's like what we deal with out the door doesn't come into the door when we open it and see our family. I assume your father was probably really good at that. What did you see when he was doing that? I mean, did you sense any of that, or did you kind of Was he really good at providing that blanket, if you will, that illusion of, hey, don't worry about what I'm going through. Everything here is great.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, my dad, much like me, is just like a very, I think, like even-keeled person. That's probably where I get it from. So he's never the one that I've never seen my dad have like a moment of panic. But even still, I think you could just kind of sense it. So this is 2008. I was in junior high. I was, I think, like in eighth or ninth grade. And the whole world economy is starting to collapse, and he didn't really have to say much, but I could see it. It's like the house that he had bought, he wasn't living in that house anymore. The office that he had, they weren't working at that office anymore. So you kind of started to see the impact of what it was, and then obviously he had to go back and get like a regular job somewhere else. So
Yeah.
even if he wasn't necessarily sharing all of it in the day to day, like I could see it happening. And he still shared with me after the fact, hey, here are some of the mistakes that I think that I made, and here's some of the things I would have done differently, had I been able to go back and do it. So again, I don't think I wasn't his therapist, but he did a good job, I think, of still distilling those lessons he learned with me and sharing those with me.
I love that. And I love that you also saw the rays emitting from him, like the ability to sail and pick himself up and continue onward. The ability to mask those challenges that he's facing, when he brings it back home.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Did you ever play any sports or like run for student body or anything, being that entrepreneurial type of person?
Yes and yes. I was.
Let's start with the student body stuff.
Yeah, man.
Was it junior high? Was it high school that you did student body?
It started in elementary school. I unsuccessfully ran for class president in 5th grade. And I lost to a kid who had a genius marketing campaign. His name was Mike, and this is when like the Got Milk commercials are really big. And he did his Got Milk, but he wrote Got Mike instead, and it just had all the 5th graders going crazy for Michael Rowland. So I lost out in 5th grade. Ran again in 8th grade, ended up winning class president there, and then I played sports throughout high school as well. Played basketball. I kind of got a sense of both of those.
Love that. So, I ran for student body in 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah.
Similar story, unsuccessfully won the 5th grade one. Good old Carol promised everyone that they were going to get chain nets for their basketball courts.
It's hard to compete
that
for
campaign is what won it. So kudos to that. I learned at a very young age, don't trust politicians. Sports, you said you played basketball. What position, man?
I played mostly like guard or a bit of a wing. I played up through my sophomore year, and then my son was actually born at the beginning of my junior year, so that's when I stopped playing basketball. But yeah, pretty much most of my life up until that point.
Who was your role model when you watched the NBA, or like who was it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Southern California, so Kobe Bryant was like the guy in the household. You can't see it right now because it actually just fell down, but I got a poster of
the mama.
Right here. Yeah, that's it. Literally, it fell down before this recording. That's why you can see the blue tape that I used to hang it level. But yeah, Kobe was definitely my inspiration growing up.
Oh, I'm telling you right now, if my mom is watching this episode, when she watches this episode, she's going to want to know who you are, give you a hug. I grew up in a household of Laker fans. They had the Laker banners. I mean, the early 2000s. I graduated in 2004, so that early 2000s era was just
peak
prime Laker era. Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really cool that you grew up with them. So, student body, you did that in grade school, junior high, 8th grade, you won. You played sport.
Yeah.
I'm taking you're very sociable. Like it seems that you have the ability to communicate very well.
Mm-hmm.
These are roles that require you to communicate very well. Where do you think you get that ability from, Tony?
Yeah, I think just one caveat I want to add to that, Burton, because I think a lot of people confuse the ability to communicate well with being an extrovert. And I always have to tell folks, like, I am very much an introverted person. Like I need time to myself, and I definitely recharge when I'm alone. And if I spend too much time in a room full of people, talking too much, that can tend to drain me a little bit. So I just want to start with that point, that you can you can be a strong communicator, but also be someone who still is very much introverted. But I think the ability to communicate, one, I read a lot as a kid, and I think that helped. I read a lot of mostly like fiction when I was younger, and then as I kind of became, later high school years and even into college, I started reading a lot more nonfiction and personal development. My dad was someone who I think did a really good job of articulating himself, and within his own business, he had to sell people on why he was the right person to work with. He was a general manager in his W-2 life, so leading people and doing it that way. And I remember like bring your kid to work day, and I kind of got to see him in his element. So I think a little bit of it came from him, but then the other piece was I just like to read, and I feel like just the more you consume, the better maybe frameworks you have about how to communicate different things, and I feel like that helped a lot as well. And I started my first podcast, man, when I was I think I was 20 years old. And I was in college, and it was a podcast about personal development, which in hindsight is like a crazy concept that a 20-year-old is trying to teach other people about the concepts of personal development. But that was my first foray into just like talking into a microphone and kind of sharing my idea. So I had a blog, I had a podcast, and a newsletter, and just me trying to find my voice. Now obviously I'm blessed to host one of the largest business podcasts on the planet. And repetition helps.
For those that don't know, what's the name of that podcast?
Yeah, it's the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Rookie podcast. So if you search that phrase, you'll find it. But most days we're somewhere around the top 100 on business podcasts for Apple and for Spotify.
Hey, that's awesome. But I totally agree with you, Tony, in terms of like being an introvert, but being able to turn that switch on when you need to be that extrovert. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity. And that's essentially how I approach every conversation. Mm-hmm. Just like you, I love a good story. Yeah. And I believe everybody has a good story. Hence why we're doing what we're doing today. Right. So I just love that. But there comes a moment where it's a little too much energy going on in the room that I wouldn't say it's claustrophobia, but I definitely got to get away.
Yeah, need some space. You got to reset a little bit.
Absolutely. I love that. And so, okay. Before we kind of go into the high school years and then the years after that, were there any big challenges that you or the family faced besides your father losing the business in '08 and having to go back into the corporate life? Were there any struggles that you encountered personally, as a kid, the social groups, the dealing with emotions that you're probably not used to. Yeah. Any personal struggles that you dealt with that you'd like to share, and maybe some steps that help you get out of those struggles at the time?
Yeah, I mean, probably the most unique part of my story is that I became a dad when I was 16 years old, and having, the responsibility of parenthood placed on your shoulders when, I literally just got my license, I think that gives you a certain perspective on life, and I think just a certain level of focus maybe that most people probably don't get until they're a little bit older, but the fact that when I graduated from high school, I already had someone who was depending on me to go out into the world and kind of figure things out. I think it does give you a certain level of discipline that I think has served me incredibly well.
To me, that's a very, very unique scenario that you went through, but it is a scenario that I'm sure hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Americans, or even outside of America might be experiencing. And I love that you said it took a level of focus, but if we could be real for a second, that focus wasn't immediate, right? I'm sure it was, it probably felt like a rug pull at the time when it was announced. Yeah. At the time, you're 16, again, the body's not even fully developed at that time, right? You hear this news. Yeah. Do you recall the first thoughts that went through your mind? Was it panic? Was it, I got to go find a job? Was it, I think my life is over? Yeah. What were some just immediate emotions, thoughts that went through your head at the time?
Yeah, I mean, so it was, my high school years could be turned into a reality TV show probably. So it was my ex-girlfriend, right, when I was in high school, who, reached out to me and said, "Hey, like, I think I might be pregnant." She comes over after school one day, and she takes a pregnancy test, and we both see that it says positive. So I say, "Hey, why don't you take another one?" And she takes another one, and that also says positive. She ends up taking three tests, and they all say positive. So I'm like, okay, I think this might be real. And then it was just like,
Charm, it looks
yeah,
like.
So I mean, from that point, man, it was really just okay. Well, here's what's happening. Like, what are the next steps that we need to do to prepare ourselves? And for me, it was like, okay, let's go out and get a job. I was playing sports, so I wasn't working, and I went out and got a part-time job to try and make sure I could contribute. And it was obviously me and her not being together, and we've never been together since he's been born. And my current wife and I started dating when my son was 11 months old. We also went to high school together. But it was more so just like, okay, let's figure out what, co-parenting looks like as two young kids. But I wouldn't say that there was ever like a moment of my life is over or a moment of, like, woe is me. It was just kind of like a new reality. And it's like, okay, I mean,
Yeah.
hey, this is what life looks like moving forward. And, as someone who has parents, you understand this, like meeting your child for the first time. It's like one of the most magical things. And while being a parent young, again, I think presented its own unique set of challenges, it also allowed me to experience that feeling at a time when a lot of other kids are focused on the dumbest things, like what to wear to this party, or trying to whatever it may be, the things that young boys tend to focus on. And I think I had the benefit of not having to worry about a lot of those things.
I love that, and that I think was kind of the road that paved that focus that you were talking
Yeah,
about. Right?
100%.
Because now it's like, hey, I don't need these distractions.
Right.
Like I got to focus on this child of mine that really needs me.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I love the
Yeah.
resilience that you had, even at a young age, And I wanted to ask you these questions because I know I know tons of people that I've encountered. I have family members that have been there, and it's not easy. It really isn't. And so anytime I come across someone who experienced something and they've gotten out of that scenario, I definitely want to make sure that we share it with the audience and let them know, hey, it's going to be part of your story, right? It needs to happen in a sense.
And Bird, one thing I'd add to that, man, is that, and we kind of talked about this before we hit record, but life is always filled with peaks and valleys, and I'm a firm believer that experiencing those peaks becomes so much better when you've gotten there after going through one of those valleys in life. And I'm also a firm believer that once you go through what you feel like is maybe the lowest point in your life, when something else negative happens, it's so much easier to get through that because you're like, man, I've been through worse before. So there's a saying that I heard when I was younger, and it's that a smooth sea never made for a skillful sailor. And that always stuck with me because it's like, if you really want to have someone who's going to achieve something in life, they've got to have a little bit of grit. They've got to have a little bit of, battle wounds. They've got to have a little bit of just, I don't even know what the word is, but just like the ability to get through when things get tough. And again, I don't want to make my situation sound like it was the worst possible thing that could have happened, because there are significantly far more difficult things that folks have had to go through than becoming a parent early. But that said, I think it definitely did present certain challenges that, as I've matured through life, I think part of the reason I'm able to stay so even keeled is because it's like, we're going to figure it out. I've been through worse. So yeah, it's the peaks and the valleys kind of balancing each other out.
I agree 100%. Again, the reason I even started the PropStream Pros is because I encountered, 9 out of the people I encountered, I discovered, hey, hold on here. No one really kind of dreamt about being a real estate investor or whatever it may be. I discovered that every single person goes through these valleys, these ups and downs, if you will. And I agree with you. I'm a firm believer that you have to experience them That's what's going to build you, build that resilience to achieve what you need to achieve. Call it a test, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when we're dealing with homeowners that are going through these valleys and peaks. Right. They definitely want someone who's experienced something similar or can or at least provide some empathy, right, in that scenario. So love what you said. And can you repeat that quote again? Because that's something I'm studying from you. What was it? Calm seas or
a smooth sea never made for a skillful sailor.
Okay. That's definitely going to be a soundbite we're going to use. I love that. Okay, so entrepreneur, definitely, again, that comes at a young age. You see your father, fell forward, right, for a good way. Business after business, maneuvering between business, corporate life, but always making sure the family felt that they were taken care of. Fast forward, you are a student body, you have that ability to be that introvert, extrovert, which again, quality over quantity. But then in high school, at the age of 16, your junior year, life kind of takes a different road, right? Right. You're a father now. You said you met your wife about 11 months. Well, your son was 11 months old, right, and you met your wife. Yeah. Who is your wife today, right? Right. How does, I hate to be real, but she must have had her eyebrow raised at you too. Hold up here. Who's this man, right? He's cute, normal, but young father, that. What do the kids call it today? A red flag, right? Did she even look at it that way? I'm assuming not, right?
Yeah, I mean, luckily we'd actually met as freshmen in high school, so we'd already known each other, and there was already a little bit of history there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, kudos to her for even with, I think all that comes along with dating someone that has a kid. She was able to look past that and just kind of focus on, even at a young age, and it's incredible really when you think about it, that even at a young age, she herself was able to kind of look past that and just focus on what we have as a couple and kind of what the potential was for us dating. And she always kind of jokes, because I told her before we started dating that I was going to marry her. And, she just thought maybe hey, this is going to be my boyfriend maybe for the season. But 17 years later, we're still here, man.
She made one of the best investments ever. You're right.
She says that every now.
Literally, there were red flags. It was like a boarded up home. It's hold up here. But she has a good gut feeling. Call it what you will, but she made that call, and here we are today. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I always say I think just in general, who you choose to spend your life with has such a strong influence on the decisions that you make and the risks that you take. And my wife also grew up in a house of entrepreneurship where her dad was in the restaurant industry. And just like my dad was kind of losing his real estate business during the crash, her dad was losing his restaurant business. Just the economy couldn't sustain. So I think both of us just coming from similar backgrounds, we both knew what being an entrepreneur looked like. And when I kind of started investing in real estate and saying, hey, I think I want to do this full time, she supported that because she'd also come from that background. So yeah, man, it's been a great partnership. And I don't think that we wouldn't have what we have today had it not been for the two of us being there together,
Knowing what I know now, thanks for sharing your story so far. Yeah. The real estate didn't happen right away. Obviously, you're a young father. Yeah. You said that real estate started around 2019. Right. So being a young father, right, and you're literally still in high school at this time, did you have to work multiple jobs? What did you have to do at that early age of being a very, very young father?
Yeah, I did. Working, sometimes two jobs at once. Definitely during the summer when school was out, definitely had two jobs going. And then once I got to college, it was just trying to find a job that, paid a little bit more, but could kind of sustain my ability to go to school. And yeah, man, just doing what you got to do to make it to the next day, really, But yeah,
So you
definitely.
were juggling being a young father, working, and also going to school. What did
Yeah.
you go to school for? What were you trying to go to school for?
So initially, I was going to school for engineering. I had studied to be an electrical engineer, and
Hey,
I done pretty well. After my freshman year, I got an internship offer working for Chevron. They've got a refinery here in Southern California, and it was a paid internship, which was great, and it was the most money I'd ever made in my life during the summer. But I did that for 2 years, and after the second internship, I realized that I actually didn't really like engineering all that much. And after my junior year, I ended up switching majors, and I just focused on business with an emphasis on entrepreneurship. And I
oh,
graduated
okay.
from kind of a local state school down here with a degree in management, and yeah, man, started kind of working my way up the ladder, always with kind of the idea of, okay, at some point I got to start laying the seeds for me to go out and do my own thing. Yeah.
Well, I hate to bring up the ex-girlfriend, if you will, but like,
Yeah.
why electrical engineering? Like, what? There must have been a passion for it along the way. Were you like growing up with video games? Were you a gamer, or did you just love electronics? Did you like
Not
look at
not at
computers
all,
or anything
man.
and just wanted to break it apart? Like,
None
what
of
sports
those
did you
things
even
at all.
go in that direction?
My sister, she's older. She's 14 years older than me, but she had a friend who like moved away, and then like we went to go visit her friend. They lived in the suburbs of Vegas, and it was probably the biggest house I'd ever been in my life. And like
Mm.
we opened the doors, and it's sort of like a mansion, and they've got nice cars in the front, and I like asked, it was her and my sister's friend, and the husband. I asked the husband, like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm an engineer. And that was all I needed to hear. I was in like fourth grade,
That's all.
and I was like, okay, I was like,
Put
I'm
one and one together.
yeah, I
That's
was
it.
like, all right, I'm going to be an engineer. And I was always relatively good at math, and I think my ability to kind of communicate better than most engineers helped me get internships or offers that maybe some of the other engineers didn't get. But that's all it was, man. I saw the income potential mixed with my ability to probably do well in that field of study, and that's all it was.
So then, okay, so then that's what sparked your interest in engineering. So you go to school, your pathway towards school is electrical engineering. You get that paid internship with Chevron at the oil refinery.
Yeah,
Um, 2 years into it, you're like, okay, hold up here. It's
yeah,
not what I want to do. So then you switch your majors, right? You
right,
said business with the emphasis of entrepreneurship.
correct. Yeah,
Okay, so that's quite the shift there.
yeah.
But the reason you wanted to shift there is because you just knew, hey, eventually I'm going to need to plant my own seeds, right?
Yeah. The biggest thing was when I was working at Chevron, there were so many people who had been there for 25, 30 years. And none of them seemed exceptionally enamored with the work that they were doing. But they
Mm,
stayed because it was a very steady paycheck. It paid well. You were
yeah.
going to get your bump every couple of every year or whatever it may be. And again, as I kind of looked around, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is the life that I want for myself. So, yeah, man, it was after
Mm,
that second internship that I went back and changed my major. And my mom was kind of heartbroken because she felt like I had set myself up for this really good life, but
yeah,
it ended up working out in our favor.
that's good. Okay, so you switch your business major after Chevron. What was like the first company that you worked with under the new degree?
Oh man, it was
Or
a terrible start after I graduated. The year that I
explain. What do you mean by
graduated,
that?
yeah, man, I think I had. So first, it took me much longer to graduate because I switched my major after my junior year. So instead of graduating in
Right.
4 years, I graduated in six. So it took me 6 years to get my undergrad. The year that I graduate, I ended up having, I think, five different jobs that year. So while I was in college, I ended up working in marketing. So like when I graduated, I was working in digital marketing. And I had a professor who approached me before graduation and said, "Hey, I know you work in marketing. I've got this startup." He had like funded a few startups. He had taken one of them public before. He's like, "Hey, I've got this startup. I need someone to help me with marketing. I want you to come work with me." I'm like, "Great."
Mm.
It was more money than I was making before. He was like, "We don't even have an office. So you can work from home." And I ended up having that job for, I think, 6 weeks. And they come back to me and say, "Hey, Tony, sorry, but you're fired." Um, yeah, they say like, "Hey, we just don't have
What?
the money to pay you."
That
We-
must
you
have been
know,
an awkward conversation. You're going to class the next day, looking at the
It
professor
was
like,
it
"What's
was
going
it
on,
was
dude?
after
You just
graduation, so
fired
he
me."
he waited for me to graduate. Then I went on full time after
Okay,
graduation.
okay. Thanks,
But
thanks
yeah,
for
it
clearing
was
that up
it
because
was like
that
six
would have
weeks
been
or
an
so.
awkward class.
And then I just like scrambled, I had just signed my lease for my apartment. I ended up scrambling, finding a job
Whoa.
doing, actually leasing apartments, which I, again, wasn't on the bingo card for that year. I was there for another 6 weeks and I got another job at a different marketing agency. And then from there, just a recruiter reached out to me out of the blue on LinkedIn and offered me a job as a manager inside of a large distribution center for Target. And I'd never
Oh,
thought about working in supply chain or distribution, but I ended up going on the interview, and again, they offered me, I don't know, I think I was making like 45 grand or something like that at the marketing agency, and they offered me 60 grand to go work for them. And I was like, sure, I'll take it. And that decision to go work in supply chain ended up changing my life, because from Target, I ended up going to work for Tesla in a similar role. And that position at Tesla was what really gave us the funds we needed to invest in real estate and lay that foundation, and kind of put us on the trajectory that we're on today.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, oh, wow. So you went from working at Chevron under that electrical engineering to switching over, switching your majors. You get your undergrad 2 years later than your anticipated goal. But because of that, started kind of working through the chain, come across Target as a distributor, and then that kind of planted the seed for you to then work at Tesla. Were you also, again, you were a distributor at Tesla as well, right?
Yeah. So my last role, I managed all of their distribution centers in North America that fed into their service center. So basically, if you owned a Tesla and you needed to like take it in to get like a windshield wiper or a bumper or a headlight, it came from one of the facilities that I ran.
Yeah, I was just wondering that because Tesla had that whole thing where you didn't buy the car through the dealership. You actually just like bought it directly from the website, correct?
Right.
Or one of their actual retail locations.
Right.
But then that's also tricky when it comes to like, oh, I have
Service.
a problem with my car.
Yeah, so they're all Tesla-owned service centers, and yeah, so if you needed a part for your Tesla, I ran that distribution network or network of warehouses that would ship parts all across the country to give you your new headlight.
Do you get did you get any cool perks working at Tesla? Like, are you guaranteed a plot of land on Mars when Elon Musk lands there or something?
No, not quite. Honestly, the probably the best part of being at Tesla was a big part of our compensation was in company stock. And I started at the company before the Model 3 had even launched. So, this was like earlier days in Tesla.
You weren't even in the mass consumer yet.
Yeah, so they were still like very much just for, high income earning individuals.
High luxury.
Yeah. And then as the Model 3 rolled out, then the Model Y, and the stock just kind of went crazy. And that was what really gave us, again, the financial foundation that we needed to get started. So I'm very grateful for the time that I spent there, because it, again, changed my life in ways that I never could have imagined.
Oh, you say you spent there. You're no longer at Tesla, are you?
No, yeah. So I left
Okay.
Christmas Eve 2020. I actually lost my job there. So 2 days before Christmas was my last day.
Oh, I was just going to say, you memorized that date like it was something very important.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. You said you lost
My
your job.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
during COVID.
It was. Yeah.
Hold on here, man. That's wild. So you're literally on a ramp up, like a really good ramp up.
Right.
And then rug pull,
Yeah.
December 2020.
Yeah.
But by that point, would you say you had built a pretty solid foundation that although the rug was pulled, it was just one of those?
No, not at all. When that happened, we had a few long-term rentals that were, not making a ton of money. We had purchased, I think, 2 short-term rentals before that point that were doing pretty well. And we had just bought our third that we were in the process of setting up. We just got married like not even a month before. So we definitely didn't have enough money coming in from the portfolio to like sustain our lifestyle. But again, going back to the benefit of having a spouse who also understands entrepreneurship. After I lost the job, I like interviewed a few places, but like none of the offers that were coming back, I felt like were a good representation of the value that I was bringing. And we went on our honeymoon, and I actually took an interview during our honeymoon. But when we got back and I just kind of like reassessed, I was like, I don't really know if I want to go back into this workplace that just kind of like chewed me up and spit me out. And I asked my wife, I was like, hey, what if we just spend, because, it's the beginning of 2021. It was like January 21. I was like, what if we just spend all of 2021 focused on growing the business, and let's see how far we can take it. And again, we had 2 short-term rentals when I lost my job. By the end of that year, we had scaled up to 15. And it was just an incredible amount of work. It was an incredible amount of hustle. But at the end of those 12 months, I was like, I don't think we need to go back anymore. And we just kind of continued to scale from there.
And that was all in 2020, correct?
2021 was that
So
year.
you lost your job, and then that what? So you lose your job in 2020 of December,
Yeah.
and you're juggling that. Do I go back? Do I like how? Sorry, I have to bring up the feelings again.
Yeah.
How bad was it eating you up that you're like, dude, I'm doing like, you know what I mean? Because it was probably like restless nights. I hate to say it like that, but that's the reality. You're like, there's something inside of me that wants to do this, but it's life and the world and society's telling me I need to do this because this is the safe route.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Like,
mean,
how bad was it eating you up, Tony?
so for me, I wouldn't say that it was eating me up because I think when I made the decision, I had a lot of clarity in that moment. Luckily, we had really lived below our means, and we had saved a good amount of money. Where I was like, even if we had zero income for the next 12 months, like we'll still be fine. So we had that cushion there. But the moment that like really tipped the scales for me was I actually went back to Target and I reached out to my old manager there. And I said, hey, look, I'm looking to come back. Here's what I've been up to since I've been gone. And I was looking for like a kind of a senior level position that matched, like my last role at Tesla, I think I had like 8 buildings that I was managing, had an organization of like 600 people that I was managing. Like it was an important role for that company.
Yeah.
And I went back to Target and I kind of laid out what I've been up to. And they offered me the same exact position that I had when I had left, that one that was paying like 60 grand a year. And when I had that conversation with them, I was like, this is the downside of being an employee, is that your value is always tied to what the company thinks your value is, not what you can go out and prove into the work.
It was a gut punch. It literally
exactly,
was.
right? So for me, when that happened, it was like, hey, we need to at least try. Because the absolute worst case scenario, we burn through some of our savings, which we can always build back up. And then I just go out and I get another job like we were doing before. But the upside, the best case scenario, is that it does work. And we are able to really figure this whole thing out. And maybe we unlock this version of life that we didn't even think was possible. So it wasn't a lot of back and forth, but it was honestly a lot of clarity after we kind of came to that decision.
And I love that. And again, this kind of brings back to what we were both saying, where all those ups and downs, those peaks and valleys, every time you were at a peak, you were able to see a little bit past the next peak, right? And then boom, valley comes in, but you're much step closer to that image that you saw beyond that next peak. Yeah. You get to that next peak, like, here we go again, right? Now we're finally at the destination that we're at. This is really cool. I'm loving everything that you've shared. So 2020, December, you lose it. 2021 is just grind mentality. Yeah. You have your wife who totally gets it. She's completely supportive of everything. I take it she's involved in the business as well, right?
She is. Yeah.
So this is the question I'm sure every couple that's working in real estate. How do you make it work? Because again, you are working and then you got to bring it home, right? So how do, if you don't mind, from your perspective, because I'm sure she has her reasonings and her propositions or things that she would like to pinpoint, but like from your standpoint, how do you make it work?
I think honestly, a lot of what makes us work as husband and wife is the same thing that has allowed us to work as business partners. And it didn't start off this way, but I think we've really been able to trust each other, to focus on the parts of the business that each of us is in charge of, and just kind of focusing on our own lanes and using each other as sounding boards when it's necessary. But I think whether it's your spouse or just a regular business partner, where partnerships can kind of get into hot water is when there's not a clear division of responsibilities, when there's not a certain level of trust in the other person to kind of execute. And we just didn't really experience those issues because, again, we, being husband and wife, we know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are, and we really just both try to lean into what we're naturally good at.
I love that. The trust, the staying in your lane, and just making sure you guys have your set responsibilities in the business.
Yeah.
Those are some really good things to highlight there. So now you guys are in real estate. So 2019 is when it starts. I mean, you already had your kind of portfolio going. It really doesn't kick off until 2021. But here we are. So over the last 7 years going now, what are some things that you've learned that you'd like to share with the audience, whether they're starting? Well, actually, let's do it this way. Let's say for those that are just starting real estate, what advice would you give them?
It's a loaded question because I think there's a lot of advice. But if I had to pinpoint a few things, I think the first one would be, don't do anything until you know what your motivations for investing in real estate are. Are you doing this because you want to quit your job and you want immediate cash flow and you want that piece? Are you doing this as a way to simply diversify for retirement and you actually love what you do and you want to stay there, but you just want something else aside from a 401k to help you when you get to retirement age? Are you doing it because you want tax benefits and you're a high income earner who needs some sort of tax haven? Are you doing it because maybe, think about like short-term rentals? Are you doing it because you want a nice lake house somewhere that you want someone else to pay for? What is your motivation for investing, and answering that question first? Because from that answer, everything else will flow. If you're optimizing for cash flow, well, then there were certain markets and maybe certain strategies you should focus on versus the person who's investing for appreciation. So knowing your motivation will be the first piece. I think the second important thing, Burton, is, and there's a balance here, right? But I think the second thing is being able to commit to one strategy to start with. I think where a lot of rookies or would-be / aspiring investors get stuck is that they drink from the fire hose of all things real estate investing, and they make an inch in every direction, but don't actually make any actual progress because they're not focused on one thing. There's a certain phase in your investing journey where you should be taking in a lot of information from different people, from different places, from different strategies. But at a certain point, you have to commit to taking action. Because if you don't, it's going to be 3 years, 5 years that you've been talking about investing in real estate, but you never have. The goal of the first deal is not to make you a millionaire. The goal of the first deal is not so that you can retire. The goal of the first deal is simply to give you proof of concept that you should do a second deal. And I think that when we change the framing of the first deal in that way, it takes off some of that pressure that holds people back from actually getting started. I could probably rattle off like 20 more things, but I think those are maybe the two biggest things I see new investors get wrong.
That's great advice. So have the right motivation behind what you're doing, and then stay true to kind of like focus on one thing, kind of like create your own niche and then work on that before, again, drinking from the fire hose and just trying to do everything. Right. That's solid. What's that whole thing? Jack of all trades, but a master of none. Right. So great advice there. For someone who may be at your caliber, right? Someone who's probably building a portfolio now, they have commercial properties. You mentioned you had a hotel, or is it?
We do.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe they want to work with you. Maybe they want to connect with you. Maybe they want to learn from you. How can they connect with you? Do you have any social media platforms or a website that they can go to? So that way, again, I don't know what you high-level guys talk about at that stage, but I'm sure there are a few that are going to be listening to this, and I'd like to make sure that they have a lane to connect with you. So how can they do that?
Absolutely, man. Tony J. Robinson on Instagram. So Tony J. Robinson. Make sure you put the J because there's way too many Tony Robinsons on this planet. On YouTube, you can find me at The Real Estate Robinsons. That's me and my wife. And like I said, the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Rookie Podcast, if you want more information generally about investing in real estate. And if you guys want to connect more about investing in deals with us or whatever that may be, therealestaterobinsons.com. Just join the email list and you'll get all the ins and outs of the different things that we do.
I love it. Now, before we wrap this up, we got less than 10 minutes, and I just have a few questions that I'd like to ask you. Yeah. Is there any last minute things that, or any last minute messages you'd like to give to the audience?
I think it depends on where folks are at in their respective journeys, but I guess if there was maybe like one overarching message for most folks, I see a lot of people who try and time the market, and there are probably people who are listening to this podcast right now who were thinking about buying real estate in like 2020, who were thinking about buying real estate in 2021 when rates were 2.6% and good deals could be found all day, every day. And now those same deals that they're looking at, and some of those markets have doubled in value, right? And interest rates have gone from 2.6 to 7 plus. Don't try and time the market. Just find the deals that work today. And then generally speaking, everything will work itself out. But it's the folks who are looking for like that Goldilocks moment of everything, all lights being green, that never gets started. So again, focus on that first deal as a proof of concept, just getting on base, and then everything else becomes a little bit easier from there.
Solid advice. I really like that. All right, so here's my questions, and then I'm going to let you go, okay? Let's say we had a time traveling machine. Everything you know now, all the experiences, all the peaks and valleys, we time travel you back to your 16-year-old self. You just found out the news. Mm-hmm. You show up. You're right outside the door. You have the ability to walk in and talk to yourself. Do you walk in and talk to yourself? Do you let it happen? If you walk in and talk to yourself, what do you say?
Maybe buy more Tesla stock,
There we go.
But
Okay.
aside from that, I don't think I would say anything, because honestly, man, I feel incredibly grateful for the life that I get to wake up and live every day, and I wouldn't want to change anything, So no, he did all right, that 16-year-old version of myself, he was able to figure it out, man. So I'm just gonna let him do his thing.
Love it. All right. Same machine, you get back into it and I kick it, except we go in a completely different direction in time. We go forward 30 years from today, so the year is 2055. Your kids are a lot older. Mm-hmm. What I love about doing what we do, it's a digital footprint. Mm-hmm. And they always say, gotta be careful what you put out there. True. But I also think what you put out there could last a long time. Right. And it tells your future self, your future loved ones, who you really are. So 30 years from now, what's the message you'd like to give to your kids that are watching this episode in 2055?
Another good one, man. I don't know if I have a good answer for that, because, I feel like I've always prided myself on being a very intentional parent. And I don't know if there's anything that I could say in a short soundbite video that I probably haven't already hammered into them, kind of over and over again over the course of their life. So I guess if there was a message, it would just be, remember all of our conversations. Because I'm sure if they do that, they'll probably fall back on the things I would really want them to know.
I love that. That is a very strong message. And I'm sure they'll be smiling when they hear it, if they hear it down the road. But Tony, I just want to thank you so much for investing your time with us here at PropStream Pros. Really love that you just kind of were vulnerable this last hour. Again, I hope that someone out there, your story resonates with them and lets them know that, hey, they're just in one of the many valleys that they're going to experience, and there is going to be a peak, multiple peaks, and eventually you'll get to your destination. So I can't thank you enough for just investing that time. It really means a lot, not just to me, but to those that might be hearing this episode. So
well,
thank
Burton,
you so much, man. And again, one last thing, how can we get a hold of you? What are your socials?
Yeah, so first let me say, Burton, I appreciate you guys having me on. And this is probably one of the more, I think, fun podcast interviews I've done, because we're not just talking about the X's and O's of investing in real estate. So thank you for giving a platform for folks to hear the stories behind the investors and not just the investing themselves. But again, for anyone that wants to connect with me, Tony J. Robinson on Instagram, at The Real Estate Robinsons on YouTube. Bigger Pockets Rookie on YouTube, or you can just search Bigger Pockets Rookie. But those are all the places to find me.
There you have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is again Burton with special guest Tony J. Robinson here. And thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of PropStream Pros. Until next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the PropStream Pros podcast. Subscribe for weekly insights and real strategies to help you close more deals. See you next time.